All right, so this week we are going to be focusing on factoring, right? Just like breaking stuff down. Trinomials, which means three terms, right? So I like to think about this as backwards FOIL. So before we get into what I mean by backwards FOIL, let's remember what FOIL actually means. All right, so you remember FOIL, you take the first times first, and you get a squared. And then you have 4a, and then your inner terms, and you get 1a. And then your last terms, right? And then what's important to recognize here is this 4 comes from here. This 1 comes from here. This 4 comes from multiplying those two numbers, the 1 and the 4. And then you go ahead and add these terms, and you get a squared plus 5a plus 4. So sort of a quick trick is the first term is just the a squares. The middle term is you're taking this number, and adding it. And the last number comes from you're taking this number, and multiplying it. Let's take a look at what that looks like in backwards FOIL. Okay, so this is actually the same problem. This is the problem we just looked at, right? But we would want to break it down like this to FOIL it. And like I said, you take A, right? Now we need to come up with two numbers that add to be 5 and multiply to be 4. So you just kind of have to think it through. Okay, what are some things that multiply to be 4? 1 and 4, 2 and 2. Those are both groups of numbers that multiply to be 4. So do we use the 1 and the 4 or the 2 and the 2? And we use this middle number to sort of decide that. Which one of these number sets add to 5? This one. So you put 1, you put 4, and that's how you factor it. And just to be clear, if you had put it like this, that's perfectly okay too. So this is when I say factor the trinomial or use backwards FOIL. This is what I'm getting at. All right, so we need, okay, we've got the ends, cool. We need two numbers that add to be -16, but multiply to be 60, okay? So think about it. We need them to add to be negative, but multiply to be a positive. Meaning, how do you multiply and get a positive? Positive times a positive is positive. Negative times a negative also multiplies to be a positive. So we need, looking at that, knowing we need to add up to a -16, we're going to need two negative numbers that multiply to be 60 and add to be 16. Some of us probably already see it right away. So, but we could just like sit here listing stuff that multiplies to be -60. That would multiply to be -60. Oops. And so with that, I missed a 4 and a 15 in there, but whatever. What we can see is which set of these numbers adds to be -16. And you're going to take a look here and say, oh, this -6 plus -10 is -16. Therefore, that is how you would factor those. And again, it wouldn't matter if you did this. That's fine as well. So it does take a little playing around. The best thing you can do is like list all the stuff that multiplies to be the back number and then ask yourself which ones add to be that middle number. All right, so here's where it gets like even more bleh, right? We need two numbers Adding to positive 2, multiplying to negative 8. How do you multiply two numbers and produce a negative? One has to be positive, one has to be negative. So we need one positive number and one negative number that is going to end up adding to positive 2. And since it's positive 2, your bigger number is going to want to be the positive one, right? Because like I always talk about money, right? If you want to walk away with money left over after we settle up, you would need to have more positives than negatives. So let's take a look. What are some things that multiply to be negative 8? Well, we've got, there you go. Does that add to 2? No. What else do we have? I could say 2 and 4, but I don't want to list it that way because I want my bigger number to be the positive one. That's what my goal is here. And oh, hey, does 4 and negative 2 make positive 2? It sure does, right? If you have $4 in your pocket, you owe me $2. You would still have 2 when you settle up. Therefore, so this is all a lot to take in. I'm going to do a lot of these questions with you. Don't stress. Okay? This is just a video summarizing all of it. I'm still going to work with you a lot in class. All right, so here, like, think about your signs. We need to add to be negative and multiply to be negative. So multiplying to be negative, again, the only way to multiply and get a negative is having one positive number and one negative number. So now we ask ourselves, should the bigger number be a positive or a negative? And since we have a negative result, you want the bigger number to be the negative one. So stuff that multiplies to 40, 1 and 40. Does that add to be negative 6? Absolutely not. Let's try 2 and 20. Does that add to be negative 6? No, but we're getting closer. 3 does not go into 40, so we're not even going to worry. How about 4? Does that add to be negative 6? If you have 4 in your pocket and you owe me 10, we settle up, you would still owe me 6. Those are our numbers right there. Okay.